Hello everyone and welcome back to part 2 in my Warrior Cat series. For those of you who didn't watch part 1, I'll link it in the description. I'd recommend giving it a watch for context and settings since my human designs do have me figuring out a way to translate the story and make it make sense with humans. That said, I took a vote on my Tumblr on which group to do next, and this group ended up winning. I don't think it's too surprising since several of the characters in it are beloved fandom darlings, but with Blue Star's Prophecy and more Arc 1 characters being options, I wasn't expecting what was pretty much a landslide and everyone wanting to see these ones. Unlike with the last video, this one might be a bit longer because this family specifically always makes me wallow in the pain and complexity of them. That and my favorite character in the entire series is part of it. Rather than more lore, let's just jump right into the designs and I'll talk about lore as the designs go. I said my favorite character in the entire series and I meant it. Honestly, she wasn't clocked as my favorite character back when I read the books as a child, but when I started drawing humanizations almost 11 years ago and got to her, she skyrocketed pretty much immediately to first place the more I thought about her story. What can I say? I'm an absolute sucker for a doomed couple and moms in stories written to have a little bit of bite to them. Goldenflower is by no means volatile or hard to get along with. In fact, in canon, she's pretty well loved. More so what I am referring to when I say that she has a bit of bite to her is specifically when Tigerclaw betrays the clan, and we then get her clanmates reacting with hostility towards her children for their blood relations. I really grew to adore how she was written as a parent who would go up against any threat if it meant she could protect her kids. She was holding no punches in her willingness to put people in their place when they had the audacity to blame her children for the mistakes of a grown man. With that said, let's get into her humanization and the changes I've made to her story. I really like the idea of Goldenflower not necessarily being slim, especially as she ages. While I did want to make sure she had long, beautiful hair, after all her brother is Lionblaze, and we'll get to his update eventually, I wanted to be a bit more on the realistic side with her visual and her dress. I'm drawing her specifically in a post-Tigerstar era after she's had a betrayal that's shaken her into being someone new. With the visuals pretty much explained, I'm going to give a quick trigger warning for a brief mention of miscarriage as I explain the lore that I have constructed for her human story. I'll put in a timestamp for anyone who wants to skip this portion of the explanation, or alternatively, if you wanted to mute me, I'll put the timestamp for you to be able to know when you can unmute. Part of me making the warrior cats into humans has been figuring out which relationships to keep and which to toss, be it romantic or just general familial. With Goldenflower, since unfortunately Patchpelt is the father of several notable characters in the series, I opted to change from him being the father of Swiftpaw to it being someone entirely new. Is it a character anybody will know? No, it's going to be a random new guy that I'm going to create just for this sole purpose. He and Goldenflower were together for years. They'd nearly had a child at one point, however, Goldenflower ends up having a miscarriage, and in general, she doesn't get pregnant easily. Swiftpaw ends up being a rainbow baby a few years down the line. The intention is for Goldenflower and her partner to get married following his birth. Preparations are made, everyone's excited, only for the partner to die in a monster attack before tokens are exchanged and their union is formed. A few years later, Tigerclaw comes into the picture and we get a courtship between them, they marry, and 5 years after their marriage, when Swiftpaw is 10 years old, we see the birth of Tawny and Bramble. She has more going into her story, but these were the most major and notable changes I made to the lore and felt important to mention in her section. Hopefully her design carries the elements I intended. I really adore how she looks. Number 1 in my heart. This video really is just going to be me rambling about rewrites to characters for the human AU. To start, I want it to be known that due to human ages, Scoreflight and Brambleclaw never get together in this AU. Brambleclaw is 18 years older than her, and his dynamic with Firestar is very older/younger brother, so he's more like an uncle to Squirrelflight. Second change, he is a medic. I need you to hear me out on this one. I like the idea of him trying so desperately to be the exact opposite of his father that he actively chooses to be a medic and devote himself to his religion and healing what he can. His face is already a reminder of who his father was. He doesn't want other facets of his life to be as well. This does mean that the power of the three will need some changes, but that's a bridge we'll cross when we get there. I wanted him to have a beauty to him. Yes, he's his father's son in visual, but hints of his mother do poke through. I opted for kind of the braided wig style, specifically because I find this one to be very beautiful and ethereal. I may have seen it on Lou Wilson when I was watching various Dimension 20 shows and it captivated me, so why not? Sue me. I liked it. I drew him in Tawny Belt back in 2019 with very loose, coiled hair, but this time I wanted to make them distinct and unique and give them both their own styles that more effort was put into. For everyone to know, this is the design of Bramble, specifically how he would appear in the beginning of New Prophecy before the gang sets off. He'd be hitting 30 due to it being 18 years since Scourge's defeat. I mentioned last video that several medics exist in each group, so him heading off wouldn't be the biggest blow. I wanted him to definitely be a character several people had crushes on, with the crushes being made even more powerful by him basically being unattainable due to his position in the clan. He'd be known to be pretty dignified, however, no surprise, Squirrelflight is typically the only person to cause him to react and respond in ways that people are always thrown off by. With him being the last child she has in the clan, I definitely think Goldenflower became slightly overbearing with her care for him as he grew older. She wasn't really allowed to interact much with her daughter, and even at gatherings there was an expectation of a certain level of emotional distance from other clans. So I like to imagine with Brambleclaw heading out on his quest to find Midnight, it's the first time in forever where he's felt any level of freedom and peace. It's also the first time we can have proper family moments with Tawny Pelt since childhood, and both of them definitely missed their sibling. My last little anecdote is that in this AU, rather than being named for his father, he is named for his mother, Brambleflower. I thought it would be a very beautiful, kind of soft name that would definitely fit the new route his character is taking in this AU. I do hope you like how he turned out. I know it probably seems not exactly like what you would expect, but I personally really like how he turned out. So, Tawny Belt. I did have to change up her design a bit from what I drew in 2019 since I wanted her to resemble Goldenflower more than Tigerclaw, seeing as the visual comparison of Tigerclaw to Bramble are a major thing in the narrative. I didn't want to change Tawny too much, but I wanted to shift her just enough that while the visuals were there to draw her back to being Tigerclaw's daughter, she was still distinctly her mother's child. I did opt to make her noticeably tall, taking more after her father in that department, however. Now for her outfit, this actually gives me an opportunity to talk about ShadowClan. If ThunderClan is set in a very stereotypical forest, as we expect it to be with their major threat being enemy clans and monsters, ShadowClan is living with that difficulty cranked up to 11. They live in a toxic bog area where even their food sources can be deadly if not prepared correctly. They walk around in gas masks when outside of their safe buildings, and have higher tolerance for most poisons. I like the idea of Tigerstar actually suffering negative effects when he starts leading the clan, because even with him taking precautions, he still messes up occasionally. Tawny Pelt doesn't have the same level of resistance to most things in the territory as she's from a family born outside of it, but she does grow accustomed to it as she ages. What does the lake territory look like for this group? No clue. I'm gonna have to figure that out down the line. Her uniform was based on World War I military uniforms since it was the first time gas masks were notably used in fights from what I saw, and the visual just fit very well. The gathering outfits were meant to feel a bit fantastical with a mix of crows for inspiration, dark but regal. Now to talk rewrites for Tawny Pelt. I mentioned in passing, I believe, but she gets more focus and is in fact the one Hawkfrost reaches out to in an attempt to sway her since she was the one who actively sought out Tigerstar in the past. She's our window to him not being a horrible person in Arc 1. He cared about his family, and it was only his death that really separated her from him. There's a severe missed opportunity to show her growth as a character. In Arc 1, she leaves ThunderClan to go to her father because isolation and vitriol is all she's really receiving as his child in ThunderClan. ShadowClan is the only place she can go to where she'll be accepted and find community. Tigerstar's favorite child should have been her, with him trying to impart his ambition on her and continue the cycle Thistleclaw started. When we get to Sunrise and the pivotal moment of Tawny choosing some kind of vengeance for the pain of the past, or the hope of the future, her adamantly refusing to continue what was started long before she was born would have been a fantastic moment. And for my AU, this is the story I call canon. Hawkfrost reaches out to his sister, not his brother, and tries to convince her that love she still carries for her father, even after 20 years down the line, has a major hand in shifting her heart enough to consider it. She never had much love for Firestar, but her choices are bigger than him. In any case, I hope you like what I did with her. She was a lot of fun to draw, and taking time to rewrite her story has given me a newfound love for her that I didn't have as a child. Yeah, okay, this one is a surprise, I'm guessing, since everyone expected me to only do Tigerclaw's mate and children, but frankly I won't exclude him from the family. I think the biggest missed opportunity in canon is not focusing on Goldenflower's dynamic with him. The father of his younger siblings actively tries to wipe out people she knows only to get her son killed in the process. She's known for being a devoted and caring mother. My least favorite thing about canon is that it doesn't extend to Swiftpaw as much. But it's never done in a way to make Swiftpaw feel more isolated. It's more just done because it's clear that Erin's had more focus on Tigerclaw's children than Goldenflower's. While I get them not doing it, I kind of like the idea of Swiftpaw having a closer bond with Tigerclaw. In the AU, with Goldenflower and Tigerclaw being married for about 15 years by the time he betrays Bluestar, and Tigerclaw both in canon and my AU caring for his family, I think that care extending to any children Goldenflower did or could have had would have given him layers. Don't get me wrong, I'm not here to try to make Tigerclaw redeemable or even likable necessarily. More so, I like Tigerclaw being so affected by Pinestar's treatment of him and his mother that he vowed to not be like his father, never dismissive of his family. His family is the only thing he ever is truly loyal to. And while Swiftpaw isn't really his son, the minute he married Goldenflower, that's what Swiftpaw became. I think it adds a layer of pain to the fact that Tigerclaw's actions get his own son killed. From that point, Tigerclaw had only two choices: double down or repent, and knowing Goldenflower would never forgive him, there was only one option left. But enough about lore, let's talk designs. I've been very meticulous about ages for characters. With how cats are, it's a lot easier to muddy them and be more flimsy with timelines. In a human AU, the timeline would be a lot more stretched out, so Swiftpaw is 20 when he dies. He's too old to still be an apprentice, everyone is a warrior by 19, but he's been stunted by Bluestar's trauma. Visually, he takes much more after his father, though he still has elements of his mother come through. He's a bit more lanky, on the taller side. I wanted him to be a bit androgynous in appearance. His outfits on screen are apprentice-specific ones. Once you get into being a warrior, your wardrobe is a lot more personalized, adding a bit to the tragedy of him dying before he got that opportunity, I think. I wanted Swiftpaw to be young enough to still be reckless and make desperate mistakes that would have been a lot less likely as he matured, while not making him too young, leading to his desperation to be given a warrior cat name a bit weird. I want to add, I do have a design for a Swiftpaw Lives AU, but this is where I'm stopping for now. I do hope you like how he turned out. Honesty time? As a kid, I did not like Sasha or any of her kids. This was partially because her comic with Tigerclaw wasn't published until after the New Prophecy ended, and what content we had for her in New Prophecy almost made it seem like she was a mother who didn't care about her children and felt a bit like they were a burden. That, coupled with her seemingly telling her children that Tigerstar was just misunderstood or trying to absolve him of his crimes, and the three of them feeling like they came out of nowhere, made young me just not enjoy their scenes. It didn't help that when we finally did get a comic release about Tigerstar and Sasha, the art was completely different from how all other comics up to that point had looked, and it often felt uncanny in its execution. With that said, as an adult with a strong love of Goldenflower and complex relationships, Sasha and everything surrounding her have become endearing to me. I love that her comic gives us confirmation of Tigerstar being a layered person who cares about those he loves in spite of his flaws. I like that Sasha isn't perfect and makes mistakes, and shows us the type of person who, even in spite of hearing the horrible things someone they love has done, can't bring themselves to hate them. She's a mother who would do anything for her children, much like Goldenflower, even if that means they would have to live without her. So let's talk about that AU. In this AU, Sasha is the adopted child of a wealthy couple in the city. Her parents intend to leave everything to her when they die, but greedy relatives swoop in as her parents age and become sick and ultimately plan to kill her off to claim what they think should be theirs. She escapes out into the wilds to avoid this fate. With a history of hunting for sport with her parents, it means that she has the skills to survive for a bit, but she was never trained to fight monsters. So Tigerstar and ShadowClan's intervention helps save her. From there, an odd friendship into a romance blooms between her and him for about a year and a half. With Sasha, I wanted her to be distinct. Her visual had to be completely different from Goldenflower because frankly the concept of Tigerstar only caring about her because she resembled his wife felt gross and invalidating to me, disrespectful to Sasha as a character. I wanted her to look unique in a way that captured your attention, making her stick out in your mind. The clothes she wears are retrofuturism and atom punk inspired, since people within the cities and rogue fashion are based on that. Age-wise, I think she would be about 30 when she meets Tigerstar, who is 40 at the time. She's naive about the world outside of the city, but a quick learner and witty in a way that draws people in. I know her look might not be what people expected of me, but I do like it a lot and I hope I captured her well. I get the feeling that this is the one most people were waiting for in this video, and honestly, I was really excited about it. In spite of me never digitizing sketches of him, he somehow ended up with a design I am utterly in love with from 2019. So getting a chance to update him and really give him a proper look was exciting. His look also gives me a chance to talk about RiverClan. 3 for 1 in this video, if we're explaining ShadowClan and the cities and everything like that. I'm very excited. All that's left is WindClan and SkyClan. For my rewrite, RiverClan is actually a society that lives on open water, a floating civilization akin to something like Venice. However, they set up camp further into the water to make it much harder for other territories to fight with them. That said, their shoreline is directly connected to the territory of our main group, so we still have a repackaged version of the Sunning Rock battles. RiverClan enemies are a lot of water monsters, though. They hunt various sea creatures for food and have figured out how to grow plants on their floating colony. For Hawkfrost, like all of them, I really wanted to lean into him having Tiger Claw's good looks. Though he doesn't have the dark skin tone of his father or the coiled hair, I had to make sure the reveal of his lineage would be decently shocking. He's actually quite a bit younger than Brambleclaw. Hawkfrost and Mothwing have only just gotten their adult names by the time of their story starting, which would make both of them about 18 at the time. Hawkfrost is young and understandably impressionable still. Desperate to know his father, having inherited his father's ambition in spite of never truly knowing him. I always remembered his striking blue eyes being a crucial part of his character that was mentioned so often, so I did ensure I kept those. I did have to do quite a bit of looking to come up with designs for RiverClan's outfits. While yes, they do wear wetsuits, I didn't want it to just be wetsuits as their only fashion. Every piece of clothing outside of their swimwear is meant to be a bit loose, like they could toss it off at a moment's notice to dive into the water. Unlike other clans, their outfits aren't meant to be for protection in battle, but to make it easier for them to move when swimming. His gathering outfit is an attempt from me to pull the visual of flowing water without it being too ostentatious. Something the characters could feasibly make while also fitting in with what other gathering outfits have shown so far. I took a lot of visual inspiration from ancient Greek clothing since I think the large amounts of fabric and flowy nature of it really brought out the imagery I was looking for. Beyond that, there isn't much I have to say about the changes to his story outside of the bond between him and Tawny being a bigger focus than the one between him and Bramble. I think Bramble being a medic in this AU would also kind of sway him to be much less likely to train in the Dark Forest. I knew going in that this would be one of the designs that people would probably be the most critical about. Either way, I really do like how he turned out. He looks youthful, snarky, kind of horrible. So I hope in the end that you guys do like what I did with his design. This is the other character I think you all waited for. She's a fandom darling for good reason, a medicine cat atheist who provided shippers with some great content. Shout out Mothpool shippers. It's super rare for a sapphic ship to be this popular in the fandom space. With that said, let's talk about Mothwing. Much like Tawny, I did want to make sure Mothwing took largely after her mother. It's a bit funny that she's the only child in this family to have golden hair when we acknowledge that she has no relation to Goldenflower, but I do love warm tones on characters, so I'm not going to complain. She, once again, is meant to have a very striking visual, wide-set eyes and a sloped nose. In the canon of the warrior cats, she's described as someone who has a wide face, something I wasn't aware of when I designed Sasha, but a note that fits my design and helps them look even more like mother and daughter in the grand scheme of things. With this design being based off her as an 18-year-old, much like Hawkfrost, I wanted to make sure that she had a fair bit of baby fat on her face. Her expressions are largely concerned and nervous, very restrained, as opposed to the big reactions other characters have been drawn with up to this point. A lot of it is due to her having so much self-doubt, and the other is the isolation she felt from Hawkfrost faking her sign, leading to the atheist perspective she had in canon. The other one design note that I felt should be mentioned, it seems like in canon Mothwing got Tigerstar's eyes, so I did want to keep that in with my own take on her as well. Tigerstar is mirrored in all of his children one way or another. You might see the outfit I gave Mothwing and assume I'm being lazy in my redesigns. Why is she wearing the ThunderClan medic outfit? Because I like the idea of all medics wearing almost the same exact uniform, with the exception to the similarity being the tone of the color and the masks worn during Green Cough. The idea of harming a medic who is there to heal those around them being one of the gravest sins you can commit. Their uniforms are meant to align them and unite them in a way. They're not on the same team, but they are of the same mind. Those who need healing shall receive it. Her Moonstorm outfit, however, was where I did allow myself to get a little bit creative. Since RiverClan's gathering outfits are based on the ancient Greek clothes, I knew I wanted her outfit to feel like it belonged. With me also wanting it to have a little bit more of a punch to it, a little bit more visual beauty to it, I opted to take a lot of inspiration from paintings of the Oracle at Delphi. I thought it was something very simple, but also beautiful. Mothwing's story doesn't have a lot of notes for things I'm adjusting outside of the age changes and having it be that Goldenflower knows Mothwing and Hawkfrost are Tigerstar's children. This leads to her promising Sasha to keep an eye on them during the journey as if they were her own, or could lead to some tender but painful moments of comfort in the aftermath of Hawkfrost's death. Mothwing would be 18 at the start, and my idea is that New Prophecy takes place over 7 years, since Squirrelflight is a new apprentice at the time of the New Prophecy beginning, and it ends with her getting her warrior cat name, so she'd be about 19 at the time, which would make Leafpool a young mom of 3. However, this isn't about the 3, and I still need to figure out that situation, so we're gonna move on and loop back to Mothwing. I do like how Mothwing turns out. I know it's probably not what everyone was expecting, but I hope that her fans like my take on her, and that I did her justice as a character. Last bits of art that I'll post on this video for now. For this Valentine's Day, I actually did some Sandstorm, Firestar, and I guess Goldenflower and Tigerstar pieces just for fun. I wanted to sketch out something enjoyable, kind of revel in some angst and some fluff. So I'll post these here for you guys to enjoy in this video because I figure might as well. You can see better versions of them on my Tumblr, on my TikTok. And Blue Sky as well, since I'm trying to make sure that you guys will be able to view my art in other places. I don't have the speed paint for these ones. I didn't think to record them, which is fine because these took a long time compared to some of the other ones that I do, especially that little comic page of Firestar and Sandstorm. Either way, I hope you guys like these art pieces. That's it in terms of the art for this video. Now to the close. And that's it for now. I am really happy with how this group turned out. I haven't properly drawn several of these characters ever before, and others I've drawn, but their designs were dated and just didn't have the level of effort put into them that allowed for them to still work after 6 years. For anyone who's a big fan of any of these characters, like I mentioned, hope that I did them justice, or maybe even brought you an interpretation you can enjoy that was unexpected. My next lineup will either be the start of Blue Star's Prophecy / Crooked Star's Promise as a 2 or maybe even 3 to 4 parter, or I might instead do some more Arc 1 characters where people will get to suggest them to me on Tumblr, and I'll make some polls for people to vote among the 12 most requested. Either way, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed my rambles in art. Have a great day, and you might hear from me soon.